Hi, Tia. Welcome to the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I'm so excited to finally have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so would you please? I am so excited to have you. You are going to be one of our first guests for our monthly topic of July, which is parenting. We're gonna
Yeah.
dive deep into that. And I already have, like I just told you before we started recording, I have so many questions from the women in my community. Maybe we'll get through them all. Hopefully we'll get through them all. Maybe not, but we'll do our best. Could you please introduce yourself to my listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Tia Slightham. I am a parenting coach. I'm a mom to two boys. Hudson is 14, and my baby Beckett just turned 12 on the 9th of June. I cannot believe my baby is 12. I've been working with kids and families for over 19 years. So I really started my journey as a kindergarten teacher with my master's in early childhood. And when you have 35-year-olds, 90% of which do not speak English, and you year after year can get them to a place where they are listening and cooperating and kind and really learning and grasping concepts, I knew that I would be able to do that with my own two boys. And over the years, have helped thousands of parents inside our coaching program do that as well. Because as we're going to talk about today, it's just all skills, and it's skills that we don't think we need as parents because we think we should be able to figure it out. But as soon as you have the skills, you'll realize how easy parenting can actually be.
And it's getting into these good habits. So we're coming out of June, which we've been touching back on habits again. We brought it back around because they're so important. Absolutely. When you get into habits. And actually, listeners, I went to your website and printed off your golden time formula here. And
Amazing.
it is exactly perfectly fits into habits. Once
Mhm.
this becomes a habit, would you tell us a little bit about the golden time formula and how that came to be? Because I love the origin story of this.
Yeah. So golden time really is an opportunity for you to connect with your kids. So as a busy parent, and as most of us are busy parents, juggling, wearing so many hats, we're running around like rats all day, in and out, picking kids up, making lunches, doing this, cleaning up. We think we're spending time with our kids. We think we're connecting with our kids because let's be honest, we're doing a lot for our kids, driving them places and feeding them and bathing them and all the things. Unfortunately, when our kids see all of those things are just your job description. Those things are not spending quality time and connecting with your kids. Those are just things that we need to do because we're parents. And so where we misalign is that we think we're spending all this time with our kids. They don't think we're spending any time with them. And so we're against each other. And so golden time is an opportunity for parents to know that it doesn't have to be hours and hours on end that you spend with your kids. It's not about the quantity. If you are a full-time working parent, get rid of the guilt that you don't have enough time for your kids. You do. It's just how you spend them. And so golden time is a simple 5 ingredient formula where you spend 10 minutes connecting with your kids. And my older son Hudson named it golden time when he was 4, and we have called it that since. Many of my clients call it that. Many have chosen their own name. It doesn't matter what you call your special time. Your kids just need to know that they are getting undivided, uninterrupted, one-on-one time where you are fully focused on them doing something that they love. And when you start to implement this on the regular with consistency, you will see your kids calm down. You will see them listen more, cooperate more, anxiety goes down, and they start to really trust that your bond and connection is as important to you as it is to them.
Okay, so this is where it's going to get hard for those parents that do have 6 kids or do have 5 kids, or because I'm sitting here as you're explaining it and I'm like, yep, it's going to have to be one on one. And then you said it one on one. So I'm like, okay, so it's one on one. So now I have 3 kids. So that is 30 minutes now of my day,
Yeah.
which, hello, I'm not saying that's a lot. That's not a
Yeah.
lot. But yes, you have to be intentional about your time. And that's what we talk about in our community as well, is like we all have the same 24 hours in a day. How come it looks like some people get so much done and other people, they're constantly saying, I don't have enough time in the day, right? It's like, well, you prioritize and you
Mhm.
make more time in the day. You get rid of some of the things. We actually have talked about this too, because I love that you said when you're driving them around, that's not being present with your kids. That's not giving them attention. You're just the chauffeur. As
Yeah,
far as your kids are concerned, you're just the chauffeur. You're
absolutely.
not, I mean, even if it feels like you're talking to them, I think I've felt that way recently. I've felt actually it was more prevalent for me because it started becoming like a nagging session driving them to school, because it was probably on top of something that we got in a fight about at home, carried over into the car, and it became a lecture all the way to school, which was a miserable drive. It was miserable for me. It was miserable for them. And I started thinking, this sucks. I hate this relationship with my kids, and it needs to stop. I need to figure out a better way.
Yeah. And with the 3 kids and multiple kids and feeling like you don't have enough time, the reason it's so successful for the parents that really take time to be proactive and intentional on implementing it is because our goal is to parent smarter, not harder. So if we really think about the time we have, how much I challenge listeners and parents to really think about the past 24 hours they've had with their kids and their families. How much time did you spend trying to get your kids to break the stalling tactics and go to bed? How much time did you spend lecturing in the car? How much time did you spend reminding your kids to turn off their device and come to the table? How much time are we battling with our kids? It's a hell of a lot more than 30 minutes in a day for most families.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to swap that. We're going to start avoiding unwanted behaviors with proactive and effective positive tools, so that you're not waiting for the fire to happen and then trying to put it out, but you're avoiding the fire altogether. So simple tricks to help fit it into your schedule. First of all, everybody can download the free guide. If they go to connectwithtia.com, if that's easier, they can go to connectwithtia.com, and there's going to be a download there for them for sure. It has all 5 ingredients and gives an explanation. But what we want to do is we want to think about it as 2 times a day for each child, which parents sometimes say, oh no, there's no way I can do that. But you can. You're already tucking your kids in at night. You're already putting them in their bed. You're reading a story, you're singing a song, whatever it is that you do in the evening with your kids based on their age. And yes, if you have a 2-year-old or a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, all kids need golden time. I'll say I need golden time. My husband needs golden time. We all do. So I want you to think about the bedtime as your second golden time. The idea is you're naming it. So when you say to your kids, when you're ready for bed, then we can start your golden time. Your kids are like, damn, I better motivate. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to choose my stories. I'm going to get ready because I want mom or dad to come in and start doing my golden time. This is amazing. This is all about me. Bedtime becomes about them. You were tucking them in anyway. Nothing changed but the name. So you need to pick a name so your kids really, it signals to them, hey, this is my time, so that they're motivated. So just label your bedtime routine as golden time or whatever you're going to call it. And then in the mornings, that's where you have to be a little bit more intentional. Maybe you need to get up a little bit earlier. If you talk a lot about habits, you might talk about making sure you get up and start your day off on the right foot, making sure that you're ready before your kids get up, planning it out the night before. Who's going to have golden time at what time? What activity are they going to choose? So think about planning in advance so that you're not scrambling in the moment.
That's actually even more helpful, because if you're like me, I'm sorry if this sounds horrible, but my kids, they have their routine before they go to school. They have their routine, and then they get to sit at the table while they're eating. They get to watch a show. So they would get in fights about what they'd watch. So it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you get a pick. This day, you get a pick, right? But now instead you could swap that out for, okay, child A, you go eat. You get to pick whatever show you want while we're doing golden time for you. Now, then you swap child B, and it's the same thing. That's so smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you actually, instead of creating more arguing over the TV show and the channels, creating a system. And for parents who are listening, any time you're seeing that kids are fighting over wanting to turn off the TV, who's going to use the remote, what show are we going to watch, who's going to sit in the front seat, create a system. Create a back and forth. There's no more fair way than just getting a plan in place before those arguments happen.
Oh yeah, we have one for even just barely did it last night. For they share a room, and my younger one likes to get all snuggled in bed, but he comes in last, so the light stays on. So my older one's up in his bunk bed already in bed, and he's like, duh, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you turn out the light. It's like we're going to have a calendar for everything we do in our life, because it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah. For a while, you're going to have a lot of charts, and all my clients say, like, I have so many charts, Tia, and routines and lists, and you will for a while. And then pretty soon it's just your new habits, and nobody needs them anymore.
Yeah. My 2-year-old, I actually posted that the other day. I said, when you know a habit, point of view is when you know a habit has worked, is when your 2-year-old knows exactly what to expect. It's like,
Mhm.
if this 2-year-old knows exactly what's about to happen, it's
Mhm.
a habit. Good
Yeah,
job. Pat yourself on the
absolutely.
back.
Yeah.
Unless it's a bad habit. Don't pat
Yeah.
yourself on the back. And donuts for breakfast.
We're gonna flip flop that and resolve.
Okay, so I came to you like we're gonna get into talking about your book. You've got This Mama Too, right? This Mama's
Yeah,
Too.
I was a co-author in that book. Yep.
Yes, that is awesome. I want to talk about that, but I want to jump into some of these questions because these are from the women in my community, and I absolutely want them to feel like we are speaking to them and I'm speaking for them, right? So, with the first one, we've got, how do I navigate my 13-year-old boy whose love language is physical touch, but I haven't been very good at it in the past, and it feels awkward on my end now to start now?
Gosh, I wish we could have all these parents on right now and do a round robin. That would be
Oh,
so
that
nice.
would be so fun. We're gonna have,
Yeah,
well, you know what? We could have you on our rally call. That would be fun. We should do
that would
that
be
one of these times.
amazing. Yes, because I always want to dig a little bit deeper and make sure that I just always want to have, I want to know more. But that's an excellent question, especially I'm a mom with a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, two boys, and they really are like men. I really now feel like I live with men in my house, and they're going through puberty and changing. And we have been pretty affectionate in our house. And so I can see where if you didn't have a natural progression of that, how do you dive back in? So I would always say baby steps. So if you're not tucking your if you're not laying down with your son at night before bed, maybe you sit on the edge of the bed and you talk for a few minutes. You don't have to lay down. I can lay down and snuggle my boys and they're comfortable with that, and at some point you might get to that if that's what you guys both desire and you feel comfortable. No right or wrong on how much or how little. It's really what you're comfortable with. But baby steps. So start by, sitting on the edge of the bed. Start by putting your arm around his shoulder. Start by asking him for a hug. And if he is the one whose love language is physical touch, my guess is he's going to be so open armed for you that he's going to be like, yeah, here's a hug, or mommy, come lay down. And maybe you want to ask him, would you like me to lay down and snuggle and we could read for a little bit? I could read out loud to you, or you could read out loud to me. And if he is comfortable with that, he's going to help you be more comfortable. So I think for your own comfort level, start small, ask what he's comfortable with, and then he'll probably take the lead on that.
That's such a good answer. That's so perfect. I love the sitting on the end of the bed because I wouldn't even think of that. And when you said it, I thought, and rub his feet or tickle his
Mm,
toes or like
mm.
grab his ankles or, at least then you're getting a little bit of that physical touch. But for me, I feel her where in the way that with my 2-year-old, oh my gosh, I can be down on the floor, teasing, tickling, snuggling, kissing, and all babies really. I'm just a baby person. But and up till about 6. And then there's something that just happens because I've got an 8 and an 11. I've got a 2 and then an 8 and an 11. And when they're that age, my 8-year-old still wants to snuggle and climb into bed with me and stuff. But during the day, he's so prickly. So it's so hard for me. He's my one. We'll get to that question. But then Castle, he is tons of affection, but same thing. It feels super like he's a man and I don't know why. It's just
So
weird. It changes.
it's finding the times where you have those consistent moments for that. So the boys and I have really gotten into watching Chicago Fire together.
Hmm.
And so we call it Chicago Fives. At night, they'll be like, my youngest, who's 12, will be like, Mommy, are you getting ready to come snuggle and we'll watch Chicago Fives? I'm like, yeah, we'll watch Chicago Fives. Hold on, I'm coming to snuggle. And so in the evenings when they don't have their sports, the nights where they're home, they know that they're going to have their dessert and we're going to snuggle. And my older one likes to lay sort of to the side, and my younger one wants to be touching me. We could be
Hmm.
sitting right next to each other and he'll say to me, "You're not being very affectionate. You're not touching enough." And I said, "Oh, well, come on in my arm then," because I feel like we're like right next to each other, but
Yeah.
he wants more. But we're creating a safe space a moment for them to know that this is a great time for us to kind of put our guard down and relax. So maybe creating a consistent moment or space where they can put their pricklies down and feel like they can open up. For my older one, he'll lay on his own and I'll say, "Do you want to snuggle?" "No, I'm fine, mommy." And I'm like, "Okay." And then if my husband's home, I'm like, Maybe daddy wants to snuggle over there since I'm over here. Oh, yeah, I'll snuggle you. And he always takes it. He always takes it and he curls right in. So sometimes they don't ask for it and you have to initiate a little bit. And when you do, it'll just be so worth it.
I love that. Okay. So good. Let's see. She's still talking about her 13-year-old. So it goes on to what are good ways to draw 13-year-old quiet boys into conversation that doesn't revolve around video games. I do let him talk to me about video games and I try to give him my full attention when he does, but I'd like to build a conversational relationship with him where he can open up feelings as well. Which at least she's got the opening of the video games. So at least there's communication.
So golden time. So I want you to start implementing golden time on a consistent basis. And your son, and the idea is that they get to choose something they love doing. And so a lot of parents might be saying right now, but oh, my kids are only going to want to play video games. They're only going to want to watch TV. I want you to create, we call them 3Cs boundaries: concrete, clear, and consistent. I want you to create a 3Cs boundary around how many days out of the 7-day period of golden time are they allowed to choose the video game or the screen time. And then what are the lists of ideas that they would like to do on the other days so that they know they can choose it sometimes. We're not giving them a hard no, but we're creating a boundary up front in advance so they know what to expect. Now, if it's a golden time where you're going to play the video game with them, great. You're going to be engaged. You're going to play with them. You're going to learn more about it. When they want to talk about it, you're actually going to have some questions. You're going to be able to engage back with them. And then on the other days, you're going to be brainstorming to create your activity list. What are the things your 13-year-old's interested in? Are they interested in taking a workout class together on the Peloton app? Are they interested in going for a walk with the dog? Do they like to bake or cook? Would they like to do something with you? Because we have to find ways to open up the lines of communication. And what I say to parents is when you do golden time daily, morning and night, your kids get really comfortable with knowing this is where I'm not interrupted and this is where I can talk about anything I want and it's super safe. So when your kids get older, they can say something like, somebody sent me something on text and I don't think it was the right thing that they sent me. What do you think, mommy? Okay, well, let's look at it. Let's talk about it. I appreciate you coming to me. And this gives you an opportunity to have your kids have that safe place to open up and feel like they can come to you for support. So I would really encourage you to figure out what interests your 13-year-old son has and how you can engage with him in those interests so that you can set that boundary around some video games and some not.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, because with mine, it would be football. And I don't know anything about football. He tells me all about it. He knows all the stats. He knows all the players. And I'm just like, okay.
And that's so great. Like he's the expert. How amazing that he gets to be the expert. And maybe you sit down and you draw plays. Maybe you practice those plays in the backyard together. Maybe he coaches you how to throw a spiral. Like there's so many things.
He literally just did that.
Amazing. I love it.
Totally just did that. I throw so wrong. And he's like, Mom, you cannot throw it to me like that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I know. Mine's like a saucer. I can't.
Mine goes this way. Yeah. Like I fling it off my wrist. And so it kind of does this. And he's like, this is so weird.
Yeah, but they appreciate it.
Oh, boys need dads too.
Yes.
Okay, so this one I totally feel, and I'm with you. So it says, I have a 9-year-old that is constantly arguing with adults, negative, lies, and does mean things to get back at people. He seems to feel like a victim and openly blames everyone for his mistakes. How can we help him take ownership, stop the lying, and stop acting out against people?
Mm-hmm. So for whoever's question this is and whoever can relate, the first question that I would ask back to you is, do you feel like you engage in power struggles? So your child gets angry, they get upset, you get emotional right back at that, you pick up your end of the tug of war rope and you guys are battling back and forth. Do you find that you engage? Do you find that you get angry? Do you find that you yell? Do you use timeouts? Do you take things away? Do you feel like you're using empty threats, bribery, rewards?
Are you in my house like every day? Like I feel like because I know who this is, and so I know the situation. So I wondered if it has something to do with a middle child in a blended family.
Mhm.
Also, but for me, because I can't answer for her, but for me with mine, it is totally a tug of war. It is. And I saw your, sorry, we'll take this a little down the road for a second, but we'll come back. But I saw on your website, you have a Stop the Yelling course going on in July.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like,
It's a
ding.
live workshop.
So just listeners, I'm going to post that on in here in in my network with my private community. And also I'll post that on our Facebook group, but that's awesome. Everything you just described. Yes. So just go with yes, because it is a tug of war of yelling. I get too emotionally charged with him because he is a lot
Mm-hmm.
of emotion. He is just a firecracker, right? He is my son. He is exactly my son. And so everything you just said, taking things away, empty threats, and he doesn't care. He's the kind of kid that I could beat him every day and he would just be like, meh, see you later. But that's how I was as a child
You know
too.
why he doesn't care? He doesn't care because those things we all listed off, and if a parent were spanking or beating, are all forms of punishment.
Yeah.
And when we're using punishment, we actually we create kids who listen less and act out more. We create and teach our kids to push back more, to go into revenge mode. We weaken our bond and connection, and we teach them that they should lie, sneak, and hide to avoid the wrath, to avoid the punishment. The punishment is a band-aid. It's like you get cut and you need stitches, but you decide to just put a band-aid on it, and then it keeps bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and then it's infected and it's a big huge mess. You needed stitches. You needed to go to the root cause and the root issue. And the root issue and it's not to point fingers at parents, because parenting is a learned skill. It is not intuitive. You're not supposed to know how to do this. And based on the way that, we were raised in our generation, punishment was really what happened. You listened to your parents because they said so, and you didn't want to know what happened if you didn't listen. And so what we need to do is we need to shift out of punishment and into discipline. And so let's just use a quick description of these so that we can start thinking about it. When we use any punishment tactics, yelling, timeouts, empty threats, bribery, rewards, taking things away without notice, getting angry, engaging in power struggles, we are creating blame, shame, and pain for our kids. So they immediately feel like crap. They feel bad about themselves. They feel bad about your relationship and bond. They feel like they can't recover. They feel like they can't repair the situation. And it's not about the mistake they made. It's about them being a failure as a person. When we use discipline, it simply means to teach and train. So when we use discipline, we're teaching our kids the skills to learn from their mistakes and do better next time. So even just looking at the definitions, blame, shame, and pain versus teach and train, one feels a whole lot better. And so we
Absolutely.
have to look at, like, the last time anybody who's listening had a power struggle with their kids, or their kids were pushing back and you got angry and they got angry. Are there any skills being taught? Or are we just trying to figure out who's going to shut who down in this moment and put that band-aid on? So for the listener who asked about the lying and the sneaking and the anger, that's where we have to say our child's behaviors are a reflection of our parenting, not to point fingers, not to feel badly, but to know that you can easily fix your child's behaviors. But the only way to really do it is to shift your parenting first. So we shift our parenting to shift our child's behavior. So we learn how to avoid punishment, and we learn how to effectively use positive discipline.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what are some examples of, because for me, I think it was on your Instagram. It might have been the post when I found you and I'm like, we need to be together. Please record with me, because it was like my husband's been gone for 3 weeks and so it's been
A
a
lot.
lot. And I know for a fact that this son is a positive reinforcement child. If I discipline, or you're separating it, but if I punish, it does not fix anything. He could care less, right? If I reward or compliment, or what I mean, he likes positive reinforcement. So, but I am the bad in this situation. I take responsibility for my actions in this. And so that's why I go into the guilt and shame spiral on myself, is it's like, Gina, I need better habits to not react. Mm-hmm. I need to show him how to control emotions, and I'm not doing that. So he explodes because he sees me explode, right? And so I totally, like, I take responsibility, but it's how do I start? Like, where are the habits? Just so for me, it's every morning in yoga or on my walk, my manifesting is or whatever I'm telling myself, right, is be patient. I am patient. I am patient, right? I am patient. And then it lasts for about however long until the umpteenth thing. And then there's no more patience.
So
right?
This is why, Gina, why I say to parents that they're always stuck, because we're dibble dabbling in bits and pieces of parenting stuff. We're listening to a podcast, we're, reading a book, we're taking, some mini little training, we're listening to opinions of friends or family, and we're trying one or two small surface area tips or tools, like even Golden Time, an amazing tool, a tool that every parent in my coaching program uses, and it is a necessary piece in the puzzle. But just like you're saying, if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, you are not going to have results. So you're telling yourself you want to be patient, but we haven't set anything up for your kids to change anything. So how are you going to be patient if they're not listening? So in order to be patient, you also have to have the skills to get your kids to listen the first time you ask. And you also have to know how to leave your end of the tug of war rope down. You also need to know how to set up boundaries and follow through with boundaries, and only follow through with discipline. And so once you have all the pieces of the puzzle, which is what we do inside my coaching program, now when you say, I want to be patient, you actually know how to create days so you can be patient. So I'm saying to parents all the time, do you know why your kids are lying? Do you know why your kids are acting out? Do you know why they're not listening the first time? Do you know why they're refusing to turn off the TV? Most of the time, we just think they're not listening and they're being rude, but it's not. It's because what we're doing is actually teaching them to continue to do those things, because it's working for them, but it's not working for you.
Right. Okay, because that's a lot. That's a lot. That's not a quick, actionable tip.
There is no.
This is a lifestyle.
Yes, it is a lifestyle. And I will say to parents all the time, it's not hard to actually change your parenting. It's harder to stay in the battles you're in. It's way harder. There's no guilt when you actually make the changes. You feel so confident and so connected to your kids. But there's no quick fix in anything in life. Sure, you could take a diet pill, but it's probably not healthy for you, and you're not going to know how to keep the weight off. And you could train for a marathon and only run day, and you might not make it the 26 miles. Like, you have to put your effort into it, and it has to be important for you. Are there quick things that you can do? Absolutely. We can talk about some language shifts instead of saying no to our kids. Definitely be doing Golden Time. We can definitely talk about some quick tips so that listeners have some things, but just know, to really get results, you do need to take time to learn all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that's one of the foundational pieces in my community. It's called the Revitalized Lifestyle. It's because it never ends, right? Yeah. It's forever.
Yeah,
it's forever.
I have parents who graduate my program, and then we offer a membership option. And I have parents who stay in like they're lifers. They just keep renewing and renewing because it holds them accountable. They come to a coaching call. They work through a challenge. Like, they're in a crazy different place, and they're actually enjoying their days with their kids, but they still want to learn more. Once you start, you really want to learn more. And that's the beauty in anything in life when we start.
Well, and what about seasons? I mean, we all start with a 2-year-old, and then we move into the 6-year-old stage, and then we move into the 10-year-old stage. And I mean, it's seasons. So what's working for playing with my 2-year-old is not going to work for playing with my 8-year-old. It's not going to work for, it's not going to work for each age. So, okay, let's see. Oh, this is me and her going back and forth. All right. How do I get my daughters? So this is 2 different daughters. So we'll start with the first one. She says, how do I get my daughters to open up to me? So here's her first one. She's got, my 14-year-old is emotional and doesn't want to talk about her emotions until all of a sudden there's an explosion. So let's start with the 14-year-old.
I would say the advice we gave to the other listener trying to open up to her 13-year-old would
Oh,
be
great. Yeah, for the touch, personal or
but yeah, for
love
just
language.
connecting, creating golden time, having an opportunity to open up. Um, Sometimes our kids don't feel safe about opening up with their emotions, and they don't know how to, and they don't know when to talk about it or how to talk about it. And so having that golden time and that connection time, I think would be really important. The other thing is understanding if we're meeting all the needs of our teenagers. So like just like our 2-year-olds and our infants and everybody, we have these basic needs. Sleep, nutrition, and security are our three basic pillars inside our basic needs box on every child's behavior roadmap. And a lot of times when we get into the teenage phase, our kids start to stay up later. We don't have as many boundaries. They're on their phones too much. We're not creating boundaries around phones. And that's creating a lot of mental health challenges for teenagers. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're totally sucked into their devices, and they're actually lacking connection. So I would challenge that parent to really look at what are the boundaries and routines around sleep? What are the boundaries and routines around devices? And how are you creating a consistent connection time? And I think just that in itself, I'm sure is going to give her some food for thought to start thinking about where changes should be made. I know teens go to bed late for most families. If my kids don't have sports, they're in bed somewhere between 8:15 and 8:30, and they're 14 and 12. And I know they're probably like, "Mom, don't tell people that on a live thing." But they're well rested and they feel good, and it's really really important.
Right. How do we feel when we haven't slept
Yeah,
well? How
awful.
do we feel when we're not eating right?
Yeah, awful.
Awful.
Yeah.
Um, Especially when you have to go to school. If you do have kids that aren't homeschooled and they have to go to school, even at home, but at school, if they're burned out, like
Mm.
they feel awful. What
Yeah.
were, tell me those three pillars again. I know I can look it up, but you're just right here. Sleep.
So, yeah, so basically, our kids have what we call the behavior needs roadmap. This is how we learn to avoid unwanted behaviors. And there's three boxes inside the roadmap. The first box is basic needs, and the basic needs box consists of sleep, nutrition, and security.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So it's broken down.
Yep. And then the second box is emotional needs. That's where we look at the power and attention buckets that our kids have. And when you do golden time, you're actually working to work on filling up those power and attention buckets. And we can talk about those if you would like, or whatever else you want to finish the session with. And then the third box in the roadmap is really, really stems to our parenting. And it's the fact that kids are born with two predetermined jobs. The first job is to please us, which is amazing. But the second job is to push boundaries until boundaries are found. So, do we know how to set concrete, clear, consistent boundaries so our kids can stop pushing? And so, those are really the three pillars where we learn to avoid unwanted behaviors instead of waiting for those fires to happen.
I was going to add in for that one too, just personally. I'm no expert, but I was a teenage daughter like this. And I think not feeling like I'm cornered and having to talk. So maybe in the golden hour, that is something that you don't even push still. You just kind of
Yeah.
let her do when she wants. But I just thought about, okay, so maybe every day you find a way into her room while she's in there and you're folding socks. You just happen to be sitting there. You're not doing anything. You're just folding socks. And then she starts getting used to you being in her space.
Being present.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't want to pressure them to open up. Like a lot of times parents will get in the car at pickup or from a sport. How was it? How was your day? What happened? And kids are just overwhelmed and overstimulated, and they don't want to talk about it. So there's an opportune time to talk about it. And that might be when you're just in there folding socks. That might be when you're playing a board game and all of a sudden they start to talk about something because there's no pressure. So removing the pressure is super key. A really great phrase that I encourage all parents to use to get their kids to open up is, tell me one thing that happened today that I wouldn't know about. And so instead of an open ended, how was your day? What did you do today? You get to put them into the expert hot seat where they get to choose anything that you might not know about. And that really usually gets them thinking about something that they think is important. And that's a really great way for you to help your kids open up when they're not feeling like it. And it might not be in the car ride home that they want to use that. It might be during your golden time at bedtime. It might be how you start your golden time, where you each share something that they wouldn't know, and role model that to your kids by you answering the question as well. So just a little quick tip.
That's awesome. Awesome. It's true because every time I say that, it's,
I don't know.
eh.
I
you
can't
know?
remember.
Or
Nothing.
and when you said it just now, I've had a couple aha moments recently. One was after a big retreat that I went to, a women's conference in Austin, and I sat there. I even posted about it, and I was just like, I have retreat hangover.
Hmm.
Like I feel so fried. Or after my own retreat that I had here, which was amazing and I loved, but everybody kept asking me afterward, like my husband, and they
How
kept
was it?
asking,
How
what did
was
you
it?
think? How was it? And I'm like, I just can't even talk about it right now.
Mm.
Like I can't, I haven't
Yeah.
even processed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. Total sense. Okay, then her 12-year-old. So she's got the 12-year-old who's better about talking about her emotions, but doesn't see that she's bossy to her sister and friends. And so when I talk to her about being bossy, she gets quiet and walks away. So, like all of us, she doesn't like to hear the negative. She doesn't like, is it being really constructive criticism, would be my question. But yeah,
Yeah. So we don't really want to call our kids out on something because we're sort of putting judgment on their character, but rather we want to think about how can we help her do better next time. So maybe she's being bossy because she's feeling left out. Maybe she's being bossy because she feels like she doesn't know how to interject herself into the older kids. Maybe she's feeling like her older sister has friends and she doesn't have a friend. Maybe there's a reason behind it. And sometimes the reason is they just don't know. And sometimes it's because they're having bigger feelings. So I would talk more with her on, when your sister's friend comes over today, are you interested in playing with them or hanging out with them? Are you thinking you're going to want to do something on your own? How could we ask if it's okay if you spend some time with them? And maybe plan ahead with the sister before the friend comes. Come up with a plan. Is she going to hang out the first half and maybe not the last half? So that everybody feels a little bit more comfortable in what to expect.
that's really great. I actually
For
love that.
for people who have younger kids, and let's say you're struggling with manners or potty training or sharing or friendships or emotions, anything like that, on it might be on the Connect with Tia link, but definitely on my website, under the resources section, I have a children's book corner, and the children's book corner I've designed, and it's broken up into topics. So the manners, the sibling rivalry, grief and loss, divorce and separation, really all the big topics. And you think about where you're struggling with your kids. You think about what challenges are coming up, where your child seems angry, where your child seems most frustrated, where you're frustrated. And then you go to that section in the children's book corner. You can browse, click, and ship, or you could browse and write the topic titles down and go to the library, whatever's easier for you. And then you use children's books as a resource and a tool to help you teach your kids skills to do better next time. Two reasons they're so important. Well, three reasons. One, it helps you build your communication lines and bond and connect. Two, children's books uses age appropriate language. So parents sometimes say, I don't know how to talk about grief and loss. I don't know how to talk about, bullying or friendships. Use the children's books. They give you age appropriate language. And three, it helps your kids feel less alone. They're not the only one that was teased. They're not the only one who lost their pet. They're not the only one whose parents aren't living together. So it helps them feel less alone and less isolated. So children's books are an amazing tool for any challenge area that you're struggling with.
That's awesome. That's like any of us. What about this whole conversation going on about when we talk more about losing a baby,
Mhm.
miscarriage? When we start to talk about these things more openly, it's like, oh, I'm not alone,
Yeah,
right? We
yeah,
as adults don't
yeah.
want to feel that way.
My,
We feel
my
that way.
my coaching program is a group coaching program, and parents love to know they're not the only one who needed help.
Yeah,
They're not the only one struggling with this. Oh, you're struggling with that too? Me too. And that really lights a fire under us to feel motivated and comforted at the same time.
that's amazing. That's actually perfect for this next one. Wow, wow. I didn't read this one before because she must have just put it in quick, but this one's saying my son is 6 and has been asking for a sibling probably since he was 4.
And he's the
So
only
that,
child.
yes. And so that's might be a perfect place for the children's book corner.
Absolutely. And definitely, sometimes if you don't find an exact topic, feelings and emotions, go to the sections on feelings and emotions. And
Okay.
then start to talk about how the character's feeling in the book and how are you feeling about not having a sibling. Open up the conversation to what your kids, sometimes we think if we sweep it under the rug, we're going to get rid of it, but really open up what your kids are, fearful of, what they have anxiety around, what they're sad about, and let them talk about that. One thing you could do that might be kind of fun, and don't shoot the messenger. You don't need to get a dog or a pet if you don't have one, but a fish might be a really nice thing for your 6-year-old because it's somebody to talk to, somebody to take care of. It's smaller than he or she is, and it allows them to sort of have that companion. And maybe the little fish tank lives in his room. So it's just something to think about. I know, my 12-year-old always says, I would love a baby sister, mommy. I'm like, well, it's not happening. We're all done. My shop's closed. I'm too old for that. But yeah, so don't shut down that. It doesn't mean you need to have another sibling. It doesn't mean that your only child is suffering. It doesn't mean that there's anything negative. It just means how can we listen to their feelings and support them along the way.
I love it because as a 6-year-old, she goes on to say, he says, Mama, just tell me the truth. Yes or no, not maybe. Am I going to get a brother? And she says, so I told him no. But that goes right into listen to what he's asking and talk to him. Like, I think we were taught to not talk about things. Like, I feel like that was a generational thing that was like, sweep it under the rug. Shh, don't talk about it. And it'll go away type stuff. Whereas kids are very smart and interested and want to know. And if you give them the truth, it's not even like it's a good or a bad. It's just information.
It's facts. And
like we put it as a label, good or bad, but they don't know. They just want information.
And if we're not going to give them the facts and the information,
they're going to get it.
We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google. We didn't have phones. So it is important for your kids to know that they can come to you. And so when she says, no, we're not going to have another sibling, why? Help our kids understand why. It's not just to tell you no, these are our reasons why in age appropriate conversation and age appropriate levels.
So good. Okay, this is the last one I have right here, which is actually perfect. Look at us timing things perfectly.
Yeah, everything works out perfectly.
She says, I'm embarking on teen years with my girly. I think her daughter's 13.
Okay.
When I was a teen, I had zero relationship with my parents, and I want to navigate the season differently with her. Any advice on gently guiding her to be independent and confident while also remaining so close?
Yes. So this might work for parents who have kids of all ages. I want everybody to think about, in order to build independence and responsibility, it is, again, a skill, and we need to teach them how to do that. And a lot of times we could be, the snowplow parents and the helicopter parents, and we're doing so much for our kids and we kind of hover. And so in order to build the independence and the responsibility, it's a great exercise to sit down for each child and say, from morning to night, what are the things that I do for my kids that they can do on their own? Am I unpacking their backpack? Am I washing their water bottle? Am I carrying their dishes to the sink? Am I putting them in the dishwasher? Am I putting their clothes from the floor into the hamper? Am I making all their snacks? What are you doing for your kids that they can do for themselves? Each time you do something for them that they can do, you actually rob them of their power. You deplete their power bucket, and you teach them that you're better at it. It's better when you do it, and they're not capable. So get those lists going, keep them handy, and every week or every 2 weeks, take 1 to 2 things off their list and teach, train, and practice with your kids how to build responsibility. So she might want to look at how much is she doing for her 13-year-old so that she can build that responsibility.
That's awesome. That's so good. Oh my goodness. This was so fun. I loved having you on here. We didn't even get to talk about your book. I feel like there's a part 2 coming for us because I feel like we only just barely scratched the surface with you.
Yeah, we didn't. We have not even talked about hardly anything. I don't even know if we've talked about anything. Did we talk about anything?
Yes, hopefully I feel like we talked about a lot. Okay. I loved having these questions because I feel like they helped me a lot and you helped me a lot. So I think they did get the answers they needed for those questions. So I do feel like that it was a really good one. But maybe it's kind of like the hormone. I've had guests on here where we've done hormone panels and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, in this episode, we're talking about this, that, and the other, but we can't really go any deeper until we have that one finished. So maybe I'm thinking we get into this month and
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
get even deeper into this.
Yeah, and for parents who want to make changes, just know there's smaller steps and there's bigger steps. So on my website, there's mini courses for $47. There's golden time courses. There's a free golden time guide. There's a consequences training. There's my whole program, the Parenting with Purpose method, with or without coaching. Like we try and give a nice stepping stone of opportunity for parents to learn at their rate, to learn it where they feel comfortable. But just know if you're struggling, if you're using those punishment tactics we talked about, if you're engaging in power struggles, it will never get better. It'll only get harder as your kids grow until you start to make some changes. So choose one thing, even if it's the free golden time guide, and just start learning, start feeling more confident, and then kind of continue to take it from there.
Like any habits, foundational habits, you guys, moving 1% each day,
Absolutely.
1% and doing it consistently.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much,
Thank
Tia. I
you.
appreciate it. I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes, and thank you so much for being here. That was so great.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you and some of your listeners on our yelling workshop in July. It'll be
Oh
great.
my gosh. Yeah, that would be so good.
Yeah, absolutely.